You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Future about the coordinators or whatever, you probably need to head over to FanDuel because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And right now you can get in on the action by putting down $5 and getting $150 back in bonus bets if that first bet hits. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com. Join today. Just get started with $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits at FanDuel.com. Now, it's a hunch to make everyone more. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Park Ranger, the Locked On Coogs here, talking about more big picture news at Houston. And I guess this final segment is one that we kind of all saw coming, but the Big 12 gets screwed. Shocker. College football playoff rankings officially came out Tuesday evening. Big 12 got left actually completely out of the top 12. But Arizona State is the potentially fifth highest ranked conference champion, and thus would be in as the 12 seed in the college football playoff. And they'd have to beat Iowa State, I guess, technically, but we can assume that if Iowa State won, they'd be the fifth highest ranked based on the way they filled it out. They'd be the fifth highest ranked conference champion as well. So it feels like the Big 12 is going to get the one team in, which is, I guess, better than it could have been, but also just that the Big 12 is getting screwed. And I think the funniest part about Big 12 getting screwed here is that people are talking about it in ways that are, frankly, at least very Twitter funny. If you don't laugh, you cry. So I guess that's the way to go about this. But we talked about it in yesterday's episode. I want to reiterate, this will be a problem because Houston's going to build this thing up to win this conference. The Willie Fritz thing is working. I understand Shilwood just left, and I understand they're hiring coordinators and that kind of thing, but the momentum is very much in the right direction. Coordinators come and go. The biggest problem with the coordinators right now is the timing, not the people. And so this feels like SEC favoritism over all this hypothetical game crap. Like, for lack of a better phrase, it's the hypothetical Vegas line in hypothetical games is essentially leading to a bunch of SEC bias in the seeding. And for example, Alabama is 11th, and Alabama gets 11th and is in the college football playoff seemingly no matter what, because if SMU wins the ACC championship game they're in, they're ahead of Alabama. If they lose, they'll probably drop back behind Alabama, and Alabama doesn't play this weekend, so they're not impacted by all of that, right? Alabama, you'll remember, got blown out by Oklahoma and Norman, 24-3. 24-3. When Houston went to Norman, without Zion Chris, right, banged up from the UNLV game, with coordinator Kevin Barbay, they played Oklahoma to a 4-point game, and it was a 2-point game with very little time remaining before ultimately that safety thing happened, right? That's a much different game than what Alabama and Oklahoma went through. And frankly, I think it stands to reason this hypothetical game kind of deal that the SEC likes to do. If Deion Chris plays, I think Houston wins that game. I don't think I'm crazy for saying that either. Instead, we're going to go down this path where Alabama, with 3 losses to a bad Oklahoma and a bad Vanderbilt program, both of those teams only won 6 games, right? Barely made bowl eligibility. Alabama and their 3 losses are going to be 11th overall. Boise, who their best game was apparently they're barely losing to Oregon. They did lose, which makes that wild, but that's their best game they played all year. So they're going to be a higher ranked conference champion than whoever wins the Big 12, which is ludicrous because they didn't play other Power 4 teams. But anyway, they're going to be in the top, they're going to first round bye even or whatever, right? Indiana beat less presently ranked teams this season than BYU did. But because they have 1 loss and the only game against a ranked team at present tense that they played, They have one loss, 1-for-1 there. They're in over a BYU or an Iowa State. They got blown out in that game, too, for its worth. BYU's 2 losses were both single-digit losses. Notre Dame has 1 win over a team that is currently ranked. That was number 24 Army. Notre Dame also lost in Northern Illinois at home. There's no way that schedule is better than Iowa State or BYU schedule playing in the Big 12. And this degradation of the brand is disheartening. And I guess I bring it up because, like I said, I think it's going to impact Houston when Houston is in the seat to win this conference in the next couple of years. I think you're looking at 2026, 2027, of being honest, but things turn around faster than that in college football all the time. We look at what Colorado did in year 2 with Dion, or frankly, what Baylor did from last year's 3 wins to this year, and the offense they put together with a year of good NIL and a couple coordinator hires. Hey, that sounds familiar. At least people talk about it now, though. So Texas Tech coach Joey Maguire said this week that apparently it's all about the patch on the jersey. Got a lot of like, kind of stuff on social media from that. But on Tuesday night, after the rankings were announced, Iowa State AD Jamie Pollard tweeted that the message is just about winning as many games as possible, and strength of schedule does not matter. He pointed to Indiana, pointed to SMU, he pointed to Boise State as examples of just win all of the games, and who you play doesn't really matter, right? That was funny. The SMU athletic director responded. I actually don't know the guy's name. I should probably know that. But SMU athletic director responded by pointing out that they won all of their conference games and have 9 Power 4 wins because they have the 8 plus they beat TCU. And something to the effect of "stay off my lawn" or something, "get off my lawn" or whatever, old man yelling at cloud kind of metaphors, right? Pollard, the Iowa State AD, responded by doubling down, saying that SMU on Twitter, let's see, tweet this out, it's all public. SMU hasn't had to play Clemson, Miami, or Georgia Tech, who are the 3 next highest ACC teams, and lost to BYU at home, and then called the SMU AD's lawn, quote, artificial. And I think it is exactly that, right? SMU didn't have to play the best teams in the ACC yet. I mean, maybe they beat the brakes off Clemson. I don't know, but they haven't had to. The Big 12 was a slaughterhouse because it's all a bunch of good teams. No, there's no Oregon in this conference this year. There will be in future years. There isn't right now. And teams like Houston, I guess, who played Oklahoma closer than Alabama did, just don't matter because, they have a great defense that apparently has a defense coordinator with poaching. Like these things just don't line up. But the SEC brand makes certain TV networks money. Those TV networks have a lot of say in things. These games are going to be on those TV networks. And, if we're being blunt about it, the way it's set up right now, I think you have Notre Dame and Alabama potentially playing in the first round. That'd be a pretty strong opening round game as far as TV numbers go. And maybe that's more important than getting things right. I don't know. It's disheartening as someone who is so excited about Houston being in the Big 12 because it is such a fun conference. It's a crazy competitive conference. The teams, you just don't know what's going to happen on a given week. Or it's Scatabo going crazy. Deion Chris running all over TCU. You just don't know. And apparently good football doesn't matter as much as just win a bunch of games against bad teams, because bad teams with good names or good logos on their jerseys is more important. Anyway, I could go on about that, but I like Houston being in the Big 12. I'm appreciative, but this is something to monitor as it continues to happen because eventually it's going to hurt. We'll be there to talk about when it does. Basketball stuff coming up too. Signing day Wednesday, all kinds of big stuff going on. If there are any big flips or whatever on Wednesday, you're going to know what's going on. You're going to hit subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you know we're live. TikTok is Pains with 512 as well. We have shorts and stuff like that up on all those. If something big were to happen on signing day, hit the bell so you know we're live. Locked On Coogs is primary for Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Coogs.